In the book of Enoch, we find a prophecy describing all of human history, from Adam until final judgment, in a series of 10 metaphorical or timed weeks. This prophecy is found in Enoch chapter 93, verses 3 through 10, as well as Enoch chapter 91, verses 12 through 17. Throughout this study, I will use the R.H. Charles translation of Enoch. However, for better understanding of the weeks, I will also include the Ethiopic translation, as well as the Dead Sea Scroll translation of Enoch, to better understand the prophecy. Enoch learned about and recorded this prophecy from the heavenly tablets or books that he was shown by the angels who guided him. He later wrote down these prophecies, which culminated into the collection of sayings attributed to Enoch in the book of Enoch that we have today. We will start in Enoch chapter 81, verses 1 through 2, regarding the revelation of Enoch's 10 weeks. It says, "Observe, Enoch, these heavenly tablets, and read what is written thereon, and mark every individual fact. And I observed the heavenly tablets, and read everything which was written thereon, and understood everything, and read the book of all the deeds of mankind, and of all the children of flesh that shall be upon the earth to the remotest generations. And forthwith I blessed the great Lord, the King of glory, forever, in that he has made all the works of the world." In this verse, we find that Enoch is being shown by the angel the history of humankind on these heavenly tablets. The Dead Sea Scrolls also affirm that these heavenly tablets are records of all of human history, and in 4Q 180, which is a fragment from the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says, "The interpretation concerning the ages made by God, all the ages for their accomplishment of all events past and future. Before he ever created them, he determined the works of, age by age, and it was engraved on heavenly tablets, the ages of their domination." 4Q 181 also says, "Until the completion of the period, the judgment shall be executed upon the wicked in the weeks of years according to the number of times appointed." To understand this prophecy, we must first understand that there is a concept that human history will amount to 7,000 years. This theme is evident in Scripture and directly cited by the early church fathers and many other traditional and/or scriptural sources. In Scripture, we find in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, it says, "But do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day." Among early church fathers, one such father is Irenaeus of Lyons, who says in Against Heresies, "For in as many days as this world was made, in so many thousands of years it shall be concluded." Citing these sources, we can conclude that the 7,000 years of history can be divided by the 10 weeks. If we divide 7,000 divided by 10, each week will amount to 700 years, with each day being 100 years in total. This is where we can synchronize the events of each week that unfold and understand what happens within each week. We will begin in week 1, where Adam was created in the year 3959 BC, or 0 AM. The date for 3959 BC, for when Adam was created, was established by compiling the biblical genealogies, as found in our Bibles today. And it is from 3959 BC that we will begin our timeline of the 10 weeks. Starting with week 1, Enoch chapter 93, verse 3 says, "And Enoch began to recount from the books, and said, I was born the 7th in the 1st week, while judgment and righteousness still endured." The Dead Sea Scrolls translation, in 4Q Enoch, says, "When he was delivering his letter, Enoch resumed his speech, and said, I, Enoch, was born on the 7th day in the 1st week, and until my time justice was still strong." Week 1 lasts from 3959 BC to 3259 BC, or 0 AM to 700 AM. In this week, we find that Adam is created, and Eden is lost after Adam eats from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Humanity falls to sin, but righteousness is still prevalent in Enoch's generation. What's interesting is that Enoch is born exactly at 6:22 AM on the 7th day of the week, which is the last 100 years of the week, and he is also the 7th generation from Adam. Our next week takes us to week 2, which spans from 3259 BC to 2559 BC, or 700 AM to 1400 AM. In Enoch chapter 93, verse 4, we read, "And after me there shall arise in the 2nd week great wickedness, and deceit shall have sprung up, and in it there shall be the first end, and in it a man shall be saved, and after it is ended, unrighteousness shall grow up, and a law shall be made for the sinners. The Ethiopic translation reads, "And after me in the second week, great injustice will arise, and deceit will have sprung up. And in it there will be the first end, and in it a man will be saved. And after it is ended, iniquity will grow, and he will make a covenant for the sinners." The great wickedness referred to in this week is when Satan convinced the Watchers, or the fallen angels of Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, to descend onto Mount Hermon in the days of Jared to work sin among humanity. Noah is the man who is saved from wickedness, as Noah's generation was uncorrupted by the sin of the Watchers. Noah is also accounted as a righteous man before God, and he is the man who is saved in this passage. Noah is born at approximately 10:56 a.m., and Noah's great-great-grandfather Jared, who lived to 962 years old, lives all the way to the end of this week at 14:02 a.m., confirming that the sin of the Watchers is the subject of this week. With the sin of the Watchers being the wickedness of this second week, the first end of this wickedness is likely the flood of Genesis, which occurred after the week ends in 1656 a.m. The flood occurs in response to the wickedness, and after the first end is ended, a law or covenant is made for the sinners. This is the Noahide covenant that God made with mankind after the flood in Genesis chapter 9, and is the same covenant laws repeated to the Gentile church in Acts 15 as a law for all of humanity. Moving forward, we proceed on to week 3, which lasts from 2559 BC to 1859 BC, or 1400 AM to 2100 AM. Enoch chapter 93 verse 5 says, "And after that in the third week, at its close, a man shall be elected as the plant of righteous judgment, and his posterity shall become the plant of righteousness forevermore." The subject of this week is Abraham, and he is the man who is chosen as the father of the future nation of Israel, and eventually the Messiah who will be born through Israel. God gives Abraham the promise of his covenant in Genesis chapter 12, and later confirms his covenant in Genesis chapter 17. Abraham was chosen at approximately 2083 a.m., right at the end of the week. The plan of righteousness is Israel, and the Messiah who will come through Israel. Proceeding onward to week 4, which spans from 2100 a.m. to 2800 a.m., or 1859 BC to 1159 BC. In Enoch chapter 93 verse 6 we read, "And after that in the fourth week, at its close, visions of the holy and righteous shall be seen, and a law for all generations, and an enclosure shall be made for them." In this week, the exodus of Israel occurs after they were enslaved in Egypt, and a law or covenant, which is the law of Moses given to God's chosen people Israel, is given at 2513 a.m. The visions of the holy and righteous are likely events leading up to the Exodus and the giving of the law, and the events that occurred afterward when the Israelites made it to the Promised Land after wandering for 40 years in the wilderness. The enclosure that is made is the tabernacle as mentioned in Exodus chapter 25 through 40.